Hello, Heathens, and welcome to the Blótcast. Well, in Norse mythology, there exists a goddess of unparalleled beauty and charm, revered as the deity of love, beauty, fertility, and war. She's also known for a deep association with magic, especially the practice of seiðr, which involves divination and altering fate. This goddess travels in a chariot drawn by two cats and possesses a cloak of falcon feathers that allows her to fly between the worlds. Renowned for her passionate and formidable nature, she presides over the heavenly field where half of those who die in combat are received, with the other half going to Odin himself. Her deep connection to the most beautiful necklace, Brísingamen, which she obtained through her own daring and guile, reflects her complex and multifaceted character. This goddess's enchanting and fierce persona captures the essence of both love's allure and the stark realities of battle. And it is said that she's the most approachable one for people to pray to. So I suggest let's approach this goddess and let's talk about that, shall we? Of course, you know who I'm talking about. It's Freya, the Vanir goddess of love and fertility, witchcraft, and war. Let's begin where we always begin, with her name. The name Freya directly translated to lady or mistress in Old Norse. It originates from the Proto-Germanic word fravion, which has the same meaning. This term is related to similar words in the other Old languages like Old Saxon, fruva, and Old High German's frouva, which is the ancestor of the modern German word Frau. Freya's name is also closely linked to the Old Norse name Freyr, meaning lord, like in the English lords and ladies. Therefore, it is believed that Freya was originally an epithet, a descriptive term used instead of her actual, now unknown personal name. There are other names that are given to her, and one of them is Gef, meaning the giver. The name Gef likely means she who gives, prosperity or happiness in that case, and is often associated with the goddess name Gifjon, though the exact origin of Gifjon's name are debated. The root Gef in Gifjon is thought to be related to the same root in Gefin. This connection has led scholars to interpret Gifjon's name as the giving one. Scholar Richard North suggests that the Old English word geofon and the Old Norse name Gifjon and Freya's alternative name Gefin might all come from a shared source. He proposes they originate from Gabia, a Germanic sea goddess whose name means giving, and in modern German, die Gabe is the gift. But what is she giving as goddess of love and beauty? Maybe we will find an answer in one of her other names. Another name is Mardøl. The name could mean sea brightener or sea sweller. And for sea brightener, combining mar, which means sea, with a second element possibly related to dillinger, a term indicating light. Alternatively, the name might also be interpreted as the one who makes the sea swell. I think you know what swells in her presence. Another name that is also very describing is skjalf, meaning shaker. In Old Norse means something like to shake, or she who shakes or is shaking. Also, it is also the name of the daughter of a Finnish king in the Yngling saga. Due to necklace imagery in the Finnish Skjalf's tale, Freya herself owns the Brísingamen. A connection between the two names may exist. Well, what does she shake or is shaking in certain situations? Another name for her is actually seiðr, meaning sow or pig. And the pig was an important symbol for the Vanir and sacrificial practices, blots, associated with the group, particularly in association with Freya and her brother Freyr. I will call him Frey for now because it's hard to make a distinction between those two, I think, when I'm talking about it. So Freya is the female goddess and Frey is the male god. Another name for Freya is actually Valfreya. This form occurs in a kenning in poetry contained in the Njals saga, where they talk about Valfreyu Staffr, so the staff of Valfreyas, the lady of the meaning the lady of the slain staff, and Freya of the slain staff. And the last name that is given to her that I want to talk about is Vanadis, and it's actually pretty. It describes itself. So Vana is the short form of Vanir, the Vanir goddess, the other race of gods. And Dis, we talked about Disen in another episode. The Disen are female deities of nature. They could be fairies or other creatures. So she is the main Dis of the Vanir, the main nature women of the Vanir. Now let's talk about her family. Maybe we get some insight about her. Her father is, of course, Njordr. Njordr is a prominent god of Norse mythology, hailing from the Vanir group as well. And Njordr's story includes a challenging marriage with the goddess Skadi, and he is renowned for his dwelling in Nautun, a place deeply connected to the sea. He is a deity of the sea, seafaring, wind, fishing, wealth, and crop fertility. Njordr's features in significant the mythological texts, including in the Poetic Edda and the Prose Edda, both from the 13th century, and the Heimskringla, where he is portrayed as a revered mythological king of Sweden. He is also mentioned in the Hauksbok Ringolf from the 14th century, highlighting his long-standing influence and worship in the region. The worship of Njordr persists well into the 18th or 19th century in Norwegian folk practices, where he is also known as Njor and thanked for abundant fish catches. Mother of Freya is unnamed, but there could be a certain connection to a Germanic goddess. Scholars have connected Tacitus' account of a ceremonial wagons used from his time through the Viking Age to similar artifacts like the Germanic Iron Age Dejbjerg wagon in Denmark and the Viking Age Oseberg ship burial wagon in Norway. They link these to the goddess Nertus, whose name in Proto-Germanic Nerdus is an etymological forerunner of the Old Norse god Njord. Njordr is also closely associated with wagons and water in Norse mythology, alongside his children Freya and Frey. Njordr is a part of the Vanir, as we said, and the Old Norse texts describe 3 instances of ritual wagon processions, similar to Tacitus' descriptions of Nertus processions, with at least one and possible all focusing on Njordr's son Frey. So the idea behind this interpretation is that Freya and Frey are twins, and they hail from a twin couple as well. And this twin couple could be actually Njordr or Njord and Nertus. So again, the twin siblings that then create twins again. But in the Norse mythology, the name of the mother of Freya and Frey is actually lost. But we find a hint of her in the Germanic folklore or in the Germanic mythology with Nertus. Important mother goddess of the Germanic people. Let's talk about Freya's mother-in-law. It's Skadi. And Skadi is a figure in Norse mythology known as both a giantess and a goddess, similar to Loki, linked with bow hunting, skiing, winter, and mountains. Her stories appear in the Poetic Edda and the Prose Edda, as well as in the Heimskringla, so the same books or stories like Njordr, all authored by Snorri Sturluson, and in various Skaldic poems, as she also mentioned. She's an important figure of Norse mythology. She is the daughter of a giant called Hjasi, and following his death at the hands of the gods, Skadi marries the god Njordr as a part of her compensation. There's actually a funny story behind this occasion. So Skadi wanted revenge for the death of her father, and it's not quite clear why they killed him. But due to the fact that he was almost certainly a giant as well, the gods, especially Thor, wouldn't have needed any other reason. So she visited the gods to find compensation, and Odin suggested that instead of killing one of the gods, she can marry one. But there was one hook. She wanted to marry Baldur, but she must recognize him just by his feet. So the gods hid some of the gods, so only their feet would be visible. And after Skadi chose the most beautiful feet, it was revered that they belonged to Njordur. However, their marriage eventually ends, and Skadi later marries Odin, which I didn't know before I made the script, with whom it is said she had many children. The names of the children are not foretold in the stories, it's just said that they had many children. Notably, in the mythic narratives, Skadi is one who positions the serpent above Loki, causing venom to drip onto him constantly. She's sometimes referred to by titles like Ondurgud, the ski god, and Öndurdis, the ski dees, like again with Freya, Dis, the female deity. And the origin of Skadi's name is unclear, but could be linked to the term Scandinavia actually. Some Scandinavian place names also refers to her. Scholars have speculated about her connections to the god Ullr, who shares her skiing association and complex relationship with the giant Loki, and suggested that Scandinavia might derive from Skadi's island. The name could alternatively relate to Old Norse words like shadow or harm, which isn't that nice, so let's stick with the Skadi story. Now let's talk about the twin brother of Freya. He's called Frey. And I will have to, you will see. Freyr, known as Lord in Old Norse and sometimes anglicized as Frey, is a central god in Norse mythology linked with kingship, fertility, peace, prosperity, fair weather, and abundant harvests. Frey is particularly associated with Sweden and is considered an ancestor of the royal Swedish dynasty. Historical records, including those by Adam of Bremen, describe Frey as a god of peace and pleasure, famously depicted with a phallic statue in the Temple of Uppsala in Sweden. Snorri Sturluson hailed Frey as the most renowned of the Aesir, revered for his blessings on harvest and peace. Frey is depicted as a member of the Vanir, the divine clan of fertility gods, the son of Njordur and his sister wife and the twin brother of Freya. The gods gifted him Alfheimr, or Alfheim, the realm of the elves, as a young child. Frey travels on Gulimbursti, a luminous boar crafted by dwarves, and owns Skidbladnir, a magical ship that sails with a favorable wind and can be completely stored in a bag. His deep connection to the horse cult is evident, with sacred horses kept at his sanctuary in Trondheim, Norway. His servants included Skirnir, Bigvir, and Beila. Now let's talk about the other husband of Freya. He's called Oder. Oder, whose name in Old Norse translated to divine madness, frantic, furious, vehement, eager, and also represents mind feeling or a state of mind, as well as song and poetry. Described as the frenzied one by Orchard in 1997, Oder is featured in the Prose Edda and in the Heimskringla as well. In these texts, Oder is portrayed as Freya's husband and the father of their daughter Hnoss, with in the Heimskringla noting another daughter, Gersemi. Scholars have suggested that Oder might be a hypostasis of Odin, reflecting their shared characteristics. So maybe Oder is just an older Germanic form of Odin from Norse mythology then. Let's talk about the children of them both. Let's talk about Hnoss first. Hnoss, it is written Hnoss. She's the daughter of Freya and Oder, and her name means something like a jewel or treasure in Old Norse. In the Gylfaginning 34 to 35, she's mentioned, let's read it out now. Let me look it up there. Freya is highest in rank next to Frigg. She was married to someone called Oder. Hnoss is the name of their daughter. She's so beautiful that from her name, whatever is beautiful and precious is called Hnossir, meaning treasure. And in the Skaldskaparmal 36 to 37, she's also mentioned. And we have a perfect example of a multitude of kennings in just one paragraph. We read, I'm able to possess horns, gold-wrapped glorious child. Received a valuable treasure, ocean's fire, rest on shield's damager. Frey's niece bears her mother's eyelash rain. So, a lot to unpack here. I'm able to possess horns, other name for Freya, gold-wrapped glorious child, that's the treasure, that's Hnoss in this text. We received a valuable treasure, ocean's fire, this is an epithet for gold, rests on shield's damager, a shield damager is an axe. Frey's niece, Hnoss again, bears her mother's eyelash rain. It is said that when Freya is crying, she weeps tears of gold. And that's what meant here. Mother's eyelash rain is tears. So very, very funny always with these kennings, especially when somebody don't know what you're talking about and you just sound utterly crazy. Let's talk about the other daughter of them both. She's called Gersemi, also a daughter to Freya as well, and could just be a different name for Hnoss we just talked about. Because Gersemi is also just another word for treasure in Old Norse. However, her name can also be seen as meaning something which is treasured. It doesn't have to be literal treasure or jewel. This name undoubtedly underscores her association with wealth and beauty. In poetic expressions, the name is also being used as a kenning for treasure, subtle nodding to her exalted status. So it's not quite sure if she's another person, but this different interpretation of her name could lead to this assumption. Let's talk about the findings of Freya. So where did we have findings of her in the history? The first one is around the year 1000, a priestess was buried in the Hagebjuhuga in Östergötland with notable grandeur. Her grave included a wand, significant riches such as horses, a wagon, and an Arabian bronze pitcher. A notable find was a silver pendant depicting a woman adorned with a white necklace. This type of necklace was exclusive to the most prominent women of the Iron Age, leading to some to believe it represents Freya's necklace, the Brísingamen, and possibly Freya herself. Another one is 7th century Falara from a warrior grave in present-day Eschwege, northwest Germany. Portrays a female figure with two large braids flanked by two cat-like beings and holding a staff-like object. This figure is widely interpreted as Freya herself. The depiction aligns with similar B-type bracteates. Bracteates is a flat, thin, single-sided gold medal, which show a female figure in a short skirt with double-looped hair holding a staff or a scepter. An excavation in the 20th century gave us the blessing of the Oseberg ship burial site, contained a ceremonial wagon decorated with 9 cats. Scholars associated this imagery with Freya's cat-driven chariot and broader Vanir connection to the wagon. And a 12th century depiction in Schleswig Cathedral, Schleswig-Holstein, northern Germany, shows a cloaked but otherwise nude woman riding a large cat, alongside another similar cloaked woman riding a distaff. A distaff is some kind of spindle. These figures are believed to be iconographic representations of Freya and Frigg, the wife of Odin, respectively, based on their similarities to the literary descriptions. Now let's talk about the associations of Freya. Most of them we talked about, and I don't think I have to say too much about those. It's of course love, beauty, fertility, sexual intercourse, war, gold, and seiðr. And let's talk about seiðr here for a bit. Seiðr is a form of pre-Christian Norse magic and shamanism that involved discerning the course of fate and working within its structures to bring about change, often by symbolically weaving new events into being. This power could potentially be put to any use imaginable, and examples that covers virtually the entire range of the human condition can be found in Old Norse literature. In the Viking Age, the Völva was a seeress that practiced seiðr, and the sorcerers who traveled from town to town performing commissioned acts of seiðr in exchange for lodging, food, and often other forms of compensation as well, if you know what I mean. Like other northern Eurasian shamans, her social status was highly ambiguous. She was by turns exalted, feared, longed for, prohibited, celebrated, and scorned. And seiðr is actually a form of female magic in Norse mythology. So a man who would practice seiðr would be shunned and could be expelled from society. Or in a different case, he could also be challenged to a holmgang. A holmgang is a fight for all your earthly possessions. And if you lose the fight and you survive this fight, you will lose all of your possessions to your enemy, the one who wanted the holmgang from you. One very prominent character, the most prominent character in Norse mythology actually practiced seiðr, and it's Odin. And I never understood why the Lord of Gods could practice this without being shunned. And why isn't, when Odin can do it, why isn't it possible for humans to practice, or for human males to practice it as well? I never understood that. Maybe some of you know more. Please let me know in the comments. Let's talk about a companion of Freya. Her companion is Hildisvini. It is a boar that is actually basically the same boar that Frey has. We talked about Gulimbursti, the golden boar with his golden tusk, that it can illuminate the night with the tusk and can run faster than any mortal horse. And she has basically the same horse. And there is an interpretation of a modern scholar, that just said that obviously the skald that wrote about this in the Viking Age just copied it from Gulimbursti to the just perfectly. So they have basically the same pig. That's what I was trying to say. And it's again a connection to one of her names, meaning seiðr, meaning sow or pig. That of course she has a pig as well. Let's talk about other associations of Freya, because she's the leader of the Valkyries. The Valkyries are a female warband that takes the fallen heroes that died with honor to either Valhall or Folkvangar. Valhalla is the realm or the hall of Odin, where half of those who were fallen were killed in battle will go. And the other half, the first half actually, so arguably the greater warriors, will be in Folkvangar. And Folkvangar means the field of the host, or the people's field, or army field. It is a meadow or a field ruled over by the goddess Freya, where half of those that die in combat go upon death, whilst the other half, of course, go to Odin. And the hall that is set in Folkvangar is, of course, Freya's hall, and it's called Sesrumnir, which just means the seated room, which I found just funny. Just the seated room. Okay, a room with a lot of seats. Funny. All right, let's continue. Let's talk about the artifact that surrounds Freya. It's the Brísingamen. From Old Norse Brísinga, meaning fire, and men, meaning jewelry. So it's the fire jewelry. And it's, of course, the Freya's necklace in Norse mythology. This necklace is said to be the most beautiful jewelry in the world. It was crafted by 4 dwarves, Alfric, Berling, Dvalin, and Gerer, in the dwarf kingdom of Svartalfheim. When Freya saw the necklace, she was so completely amazed and wanted to buy it with gold and silver. But the dwarves did not care about the treasures she offered. Instead, they promised her the necklace if she spent a night with each of them. Freya accepted their offer and thus acquired the Brísingamen. This necklace carried powerful protective forces, which Freya valued greatly. She decided not to tell anyone about the necklace or how she obtained it. But there's one story that I will talk about later. One of the gods found out how she obtained it. Now let's talk about her chariot. She has a chariot that is pulled by two cats, and there isn't a lot of description about this chariot in Norse mythology, just that it exists. And I found something in a Russian tale, actually. According to a Russian tale inspired by Norse mythology, Freya's cats were gifted from Thor. While fishing, Thor was entranced by beautiful singing that put him to sleep. He was later awoken by a disturbing noise and went to investigate. He found the magical cat Bajun singing to two blue kittens and learned that Bajun was their father. Bajun explained that he had fathered the kittens with a pretty female cat, who had since left, leaving him to raise them alone. He sought Thor's help, prompting Thor to give the kittens to Freya. After Bajun transformed into a bird and flew away, Thor delivered the kittens to Freya and eventually grew to pull her chariot. I think there even has names, the two cats, but I didn't found it in my research anymore. So Bajun is the father, and the blue kittens were a gift from Thor to Freya in this tale. And one more artifact does Freya possess, and it's her falcon feathered cloak. Allows the wearer to fly, usually in the form of a falcon, demonstrating Freya's connection with shape-shifting magic, an aspect of seiðr trance magic. Loki often borrows her cloak when he needs to solve a problem for the Aesir, as he does. Now we are at the last part of the script, and we will try to answer two questions that come up in my research that a lot of people have. And one is if Freya is actually Frigg, so Odin's wife, because of the similarities. And the other one I will talk about when we get there. So, is Freya Frigga? This is a question that comes up quite often when researching about Freya. So let's dive into the topic. The late Norse literary sources that informs us about pre-Christian Germanic religion show Freya and Frigg as somewhat distinct goddesses. However, the differences are minor and likely a result from the evolution of common Germanic goddesses to Norse goddesses. The split into Freya and Frigg appears to have occurred shortly before Scandinavia and Iceland converted to Christianity around the year 1000 CE. The goddess who later became Freya was initially the wife of the god who could become Odin, Freya's husband, Odr. He has a name that is almost identical to Odin, both deriving from the word of ecstasy, inspiration, furor. Odr is a rarely mentioned character in Norse mythology, mostly known for his long absences, which cause Freya to weep tears of red gold. Like Odin, Odr travels extensively, suggesting that he must just be a less frequently cited aspect of Odin. Both Freya and Frigg are sometimes depicted as unfaithful to their husband, Odin. Well, the husbands are unfaithful as well, so just stick with it for a second. Freya is often described with loose sexual morals, and Frigg is said by Saxo Grammaticus to have slept with a slave. During Odin's exile, his brothers Vili and Ve ruled Asgard and were intimate with Frigg as well. These accounts challenge the notion that Freya and Frigg have distinctly different moral standings. Frigg, like Freya, is depicted as a vulva or a seeress, capable of performing seiðr, a form of magic, indicating their deep similarities. Both goddesses also own a magical bird of prey feathers for shapeshifting. The word for Friday in Germanic languages, including English, comes from Freya, the Proto-Germanic goddess precursors of both Freya and Frigg. Norse sources uniquely describe her as two separate goddesses, leading to different names for Friday linked to each goddesses. The name of the goddesses themselves are telling. Freya, meaning lady, is akin to the modern German Frau, as we said, and was a title for aristocratic women in the Viking Age. Frigg derives from a root meaning beloved, linking her to the very domain of life that Freya governs. This points to the fundamental similarities between the two goddesses. Despite the similarities, Norse sources still present Freya and Frigg as nominally separate entities. A distinction who originates remain unclear. But we find in this research that there was once a goddess that were both of them. It's Freya, Proto-Germanic goddess, and at some point they seem to drift apart to the younger woman and the older woman, the mother and the lover. So Freya is the lover goddess and Frigg is the mother goddess, and in the time of the Edda, in the Edda telling, they fit into these roles better at the time. So they start with all of the skills they possessed with when they were once one mother figure or one main goddess, and then they separate and find their roles in different parts of womanhood. I think this is how you can describe it. And then other question that comes up frequently is, I won't spoil it. Let's have a look. So Freya is famous for her fondness of love, fertility, beauty, and fine materials like gold. She weeps red gold when she cries. She has ownership of the most valuable necklace in Old Norse tales, the Brísingamen. And because of these predilections, she's considered to be something of a party girl of the Aesir. In one of the Eddic poems, for example, Loki accuses Freya, probably accurately, of having slept with all the gods and elves, including her brother. Freya is the archetype of the vulva, a professional or semi-professional practitioner of seiðr, the most organized form of Norse magic. It was she who first brought this art to the gods, and by extension to the humans as well. Given her expertise in controlling and manipulating the desires, health, and prosperity of others, she's a being whose knowledge and power are almost without equal. She even weeps tears of pure gold. I have it here again. So the question is, with all these skills of her, with all these associations with her, is Freya actually Gullveig? And Gullveig, we talked about her in the story of Odin. I think Gullveig is a Vanir goddess as well, like Freya. And she's the one that brings greed to the gods, greed of gold. And she's actually the driving force of the Vanir-Aesir war. And the question that is asked a lot when you research Freya is if she's actually Gullveig. And I would say no. Gullveig is, as I said, always also a Vanir goddess, like Freya, but her intentions of Gullveig aren't similar enough to be a form of Freya herself. Freya possesses all the powers of Gullveig, but a transformation occurred, maybe an adaptation to the Norse culture. What do I mean by that? As I said, with Odin and with Loki, these high gods of Norse mythology are just the pinnacle of the iceberg of gods, and there are thousands of years of cultural appropriation or even tribal appropriation. So Freya could be the most modern name, the most modern instance of Gullveig. I wouldn't argue against that, because we even see in Loki that there must be a god within him that was once heavily associated with spiders, which we don't know about anymore. So Freya is not Gullveig, but Gullveig is maybe Freya. Let's leave it like this, a bit cryptic, but I hope you understand. Now let's talk about what we learned of Freya. Now we know that Freya is not Frigg and she is not Gullveig. We know about her family and we know about her associations. But who is the goddess Freya? Freya is a form of an archetype for a female goddess of love. She shares similar aspects to many other female love goddesses like Aphrodite, Venus, Cybele, and many more. I didn't talk about them in depth because that would just take too long in the script for today. As I said, she's an archetype of a female goddess, the young, loving, wild woman. And she knows how to play with her weapons, the weapons of a woman. She is one of the last powerful female goddesses of history, because after her, 3 religions began to take hold globally, and female powers were diminished and shunned. Freya is exactly that kind of female being that all faithful men feared in the next 1,000 years. She is uncompromised, wild, free, loving, a leader of a warband of female warriors, and a witch, maybe the witch. The magnitude of her character, like Freya, is in modern times can't be denied. Her handling with her female traits and powers are at the forefront of the feminist awakening that took hold in the early 20th century. And to all the women out there that aren't sure about their role in society or their traits, I would suggest that you research a bit about Freya, and maybe if you're struggling with yourself and with your life, call upon her to help you find yourself and be the woman men can love, hate, or even fear. And with that, I'm at the end of my script. And last thing for me to say is goodbye. I hope all of you enjoyed this episode about the most approachable goddess Freya. I would be interested if you learned something new during the episode. I did when I did the script. Please let me know either through Instagram, YouTube, or via mail at theblotcast@gmail.com. And as always, no, can't be better, perfectly fitting for today with the goddess of love. You are loved, you are able to love because you are love. See you next time. Take care.